I hope you're ready for some casseroles, because that's what I'm sharing today. And I'm so ready for this cooler weather and a good, cozy, comforting dinner. Hey y'all, I'm Valerie, and welcome to my kitchen. In today's video, I'm sharing 6 of the best casserole recipes, so hopefully you'll find a new recipe for you and your family to enjoy. Okay y'all, let's get started. You're gonna love this smoked sausage and chicken, Cajun, Alfredo pierogi casserole. That was a mouthful. I'm using a 14-ounce package of smoked sausage, and I chop those up into small bite-sized pieces. I've got them in a large skillet over medium heat, and I'm just sauteing them for about 5 minutes, just until they start to get brown. You just want to get a little bit of color on there. But if you want to totally skip this step, that will be fine too. Now I'm heading over to the counter. You'll need a pretty big bowl. We gotta have enough room to stir everything around. You'll need 2 jars of your favorite Alfredo sauce. Just go ahead and add in both of those jars. And I'm not wasting any of that sauce. So I added a little bit of water to each of those jars, shook it up real good, and then added that in. Okay, let's talk about this Cajun seasoning. I'm using the Slap Ya Mama, and the recipe calls for 2 to 3 tablespoons. But to be on the safe side, I did about 1.5 tablespoons, and that was plenty. And for the cheese, I did a handful of Parmesan and about a cup of shredded mozzarella. You're going to need a 32-ounce package of frozen cheese pierogies, and I'm just using the classic cheddar. And you're just going to add them right on into that Alfredo sauce mixture. And just stir that around until everything is completely coated in that sauce. Next, you're going to add in 2.5 cups of cooked chicken. I shredded mine, but if you want to dice it up, that'll work fine too. And then you can go ahead and add in that smoked sausage that we browned up a little bit ago. And this is why I said you would need a large bowl. Just try your best to stir it all together. And I ended up switching to the tongs and just tossing it all around. It was a lot easier this way than trying to use that spoon. And now we're ready to pour this in the casserole dish. I'm using a 9x13. And I did spray mine with nonstick spray. And y'all, this bowl was a chunk of lead. It's a glass bowl and it's already heavy when it's empty. At least I got it all in there without making a huge mess. Now just try to make sure you spread it out into an even layer. The recipe called for 1 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, but I just used about a handful of that, and then I added 1 cup of shredded mozzarella. But you can even use cheddar on here if you want to. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 375, uncovered, for 35 to 45 minutes. This turned out so good. I made this to take up to my sister, and they loved it. I've had a chicken pierogi casserole before, and it was delicious. But the smoked sausage and Cajun seasoning made this one even better. I definitely need to cook with pierogies more often. If I'd have had it together and planned a little better, I could have served it with some Mexican street corn. That is always a hit. But I did not. Maybe next time, because I will be making this again. You gotta put this John Wayne casserole on your meal plan. I started out in a large skillet. I added 1 pound of lean ground beef and 1 small diced onion. You're just going to break that up and let it cook until that ground beef is cooked through. And I'm just using a paper towel to get rid of that grease. Now you're going to add in 1 packet of taco seasoning and a can of diced tomatoes with green chilies. And in case you didn't know, both of those, the taco seasoning and the Rotel, you can get them in mild or hot. But I always grab the mild. I also added 1 can of drained corn and about 1/4 of a cup of water. Now stir that and let it come to a low simmer. I left that on the stove top to thicken up a little bit, and then I moved over to the counter to start on the biscuit layer. In a large bowl, I added 3 cups of the Bisquick baking mix. And you're also going to add 1 cup of water. Now you'll just mix that up until it comes together and it'll form a dough. This is going to be the bottom layer of our casserole. I set that aside so I can make up a quick third and final mixture. The recipe calls for the Philadelphia chive and onion cream cheese. I didn't have that, so I'm making up a quick substitute. I mixed together 8 ounces of softened cream cheese and a couple tablespoons of ranch seasoning. I'm also adding 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. Now mix that together, and as you can see here, I'm struggling. My cream cheese was not at room temperature, and I probably should have put it in the microwave, but I didn't. So I had to pull out the old hand mixer. So now we have all 3 mixtures ready so we can put together this casserole. I'm using a 9x13, and make sure you spray that with nonstick spray. Then pour in that biscuit dough. And I had to use my offset spatula to spread that out because it was sliding all over the bottom of that dish. Now for the second layer, you can go ahead and add that ground beef. Just spread it out and make sure it covers all of that biscuit dough. And for this last layer, I'm spooning over that cream cheese. I had to work at it for a bit, but if you don't have an offset spatula, you can just use a fork. It really don't matter how you do it as long as you get it done. Now my favorite part, I'm topping it with 2 cups of shredded cheese. I used a mixture of cheddar and mozzarella, but you can really use any cheese you like here. This casserole bakes at 325 for about 40 minutes. And if you can be patient, it's better to let it sit for about 10 minutes before you serve it. It's much easier to slice and serve that way. We topped ours with sour cream and taco sauce. And let me tell you, my husband feels like he should put taco sauce on everything. I give him something and he's like, "We got taco sauce?" But it did go well with it. Either way, it's absolutely delicious. I can't believe I waited this long to make the Swiss chicken casserole. I started out in a 9x13-inch baking dish, and I added in 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken. I'm seasoning up that chicken with 1.5 teaspoons of poultry seasoning. That's what the recipe called for, but if you don't have it, you can use any combination of sage, thyme, oregano, or even Italian seasoning. I also added a teaspoon of garlic powder. And you're going to need a total of 1.5 cups of chicken broth, but right now I'm only adding 1/2 cup to that chicken. And this is the bouillon that I use to make my broth. It's a huge container of it, and it does last a pretty good while. Now just stir all that chicken together to get it coated in that broth and seasonings. And I did try to spread it out into an even layer. Now I'm pushing that to the side to make up a quick mixture. In a medium-sized bowl, you're going to add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup. I'm also adding 1/2 cup of sour cream and another 1/2 cup of that chicken broth. We still got 1/2 cup of that left, but that's what I'll use to mix with the stuffing. Now whisk that mixture together until it's well combined. Now I'm just grabbing that casserole and I'm going to spread this mixture evenly over the top. And the recipe says to do this and spread it evenly over the top of the chicken, But I got to thinking and I just dumped it all in because it's all got to be mixed up anyway. You just want to make sure all that chicken gets covered in that mixture. Now, once you get it all mixed together and spread it out evenly, we're going to top it with some Swiss cheese. We don't usually use Swiss just because we love provolone, but I had to buy it for the recipe. I couldn't make a Swiss chicken casserole with provolone cheese. And the recipe called for 8 slices. There was 12 in that pack. And I wasn't about to let those other 4 pieces go to waste, so I added it all on. My husband assured me, though, I can never add too much cheese. Okay, one last mixture. In a medium-sized bowl, add in 2 tablespoons of melted butter, the last half of that chicken broth, and 3 cups of stuffing. I'm using the Pepperidge Farm herb-seasoned cube stuffing. I wish it was the regular kind instead of the cubed, but it's okay. That's what I had on hand. You'll just want to toss it around and get it all coated in that broth. Now just add that to the top of the casserole. I just spread it out to cover all that cheese. And listen, if y'all don't have something, don't go make a special trip to the grocery store. Most times I can substitute with something I already have. This casserole baked uncovered at 350 for 30 to 35 minutes. This was so good, and it was extra cheesy because of that extra cheese I added. But I really am glad I gave that Swiss cheese a try. It was really good. And I just served it with some mashed potatoes and green beans. This is definitely some good comfort food right here. I loved the stuffing on top. And if you're not a fan, give this a try. It's a little different than the normal stuffing. This had a lot of flavor and it was really easy to throw together. And if you wanted to amp up that flavor even more, you can add in shredded rotisserie chicken. That would be really good. If you haven't tried these white chicken enchiladas, you seriously need to. I started out by adding 4 ounces of softened cream cheese to a large bowl, along with 3 cups of cooked shredded chicken and 1 cup of shredded cheese. The recipe called for Monterey Jack. I didn't have that on hand, so I used a combination of cheddar and mozzarella. I also added in 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. Now give that a really good stir. This will be the filling for the enchiladas. I'm using a 9 by 13 inch baking dish, and I did spray that with nonstick spray. I didn't read the recipe correctly, so I ended up getting the burrito-sized tortillas. It worked out fine, but this would be much better with the smaller taco-sized tortillas. I was wondering why it didn't seem like I had a lot of filling for these. So to assemble these, you'll divide that chicken mixture evenly between 8 taco-sized flour tortillas. You can just roll yours up, but in my case, I had to fold the sides in because my tortillas were too big and they wouldn't fit in that casserole dish. After you get them all rolled up and in that casserole dish, we're going to head over to the stovetop and start on the white enchilada sauce. In a large pan, I added 3 tablespoons of butter. I let that completely melt down, then I sprinkled in 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Now whisk that for about a minute or so, just to let that flour cook. And while continuing to whisk constantly, I slowly added in 2 cups of chicken broth. And you'll whisk that until it's very well combined and there's no more lumps. Next, you're going to add in 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning, not the whole pack, just 1 tablespoon, along with 3/4 of a cup of sour cream. You're also going to add in a 4-ounce can of the diced green chilies. Now you'll give that a really good mix. Make sure that sour cream is completely dissolved. Remove it from the heat, then we're going to head over to the counter. Now take that sauce that we just made up and pour it evenly over the top of those enchiladas. And I know I said the sauce in that last recipe was amazing, but this sauce right here is right there with it. I'm pretty sure it would be good on anything. Now I'm topping it all off with 1.5 cups of shredded cheese. Then this casserole goes into the oven to bake at 350 for 25 minutes. And I turn the broiler on for the last minute just to get that top golden brown. I just kept this simple and served it with some Knorr Spanish rice. But this would also be good with some refried beans or corn, or you can just make these and eat them by themselves. They are that good. We love Mexican food at our house, and this was absolutely delicious. Let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Mexican dish? This string cheese manicotti was so easy to make. I started out in a large skillet. I've got about 1 pound of ground beef here, and to that I added half a diced onion. You're just going to break that up and let it cook until that ground beef is cooked through. This was pretty lean. There wasn't much grease to get out, but I just used a paper towel to get rid of what I could. Now I'm adding in a teaspoon of minced garlic, and I just stirred that around and let it cook for about 1 minute or so, just until that garlic becomes fragrant. Now for this part, you can season it up however you want. I added a little salt, some pepper, some garlic powder, Italian seasoning, and a little nature seasoning. Next, I'm adding in a 24-ounce can of spaghetti sauce. Now you can use your favorite here. I'm just using Hunt's because we really like it, and well, it's a little more easier on the budget. Just give that a stir, and then I like to let it sit here and simmer for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be ready to put this manicotti together. And y'all, this is gonna go fast. You just wait and see. I'm using an 8-ounce package of manicotti shells. This is what they look like if you're not familiar with them. They can be aggravating sometimes. You gotta cook them, and then you gotta try to stuff them without them breaking. I'm using an uncooked manicotti shell, and I'm stuffing it with a string cheese stick. And I'm just using the mozzarella string cheese sticks, but you're gonna need 14. You just continue this until you've used up all your manicotti shells. Now I'm pouring over about 1 cup of water, and this will just help to make sure all your shells get cooked completely. Then you can go ahead and spoon over that meat sauce mixture. And try to do it kind of evenly to make sure all those manicotti shells get covered in that sauce. And for the cheese, you can add anything you like. I did a small handful of Parmesan cheese. Then I added about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of a combination of shredded cheddar and mozzarella cheese. I probably should have waited to the end to add that cheese, but I didn't. Oh well. Now I'm just covering it very tightly with foil. This will help to trap that steam and make sure everything gets cooked. I put this in the oven to bake at 350 for about 30 minutes. And let me tell you, this was the easiest manicotti that I have ever made. No one's ever going to know that you didn't spend all day long stuffing manicotti shells. My husband loves manicotti. In fact, it's probably one of his most favorite things that his mom used to make for him. And I was so intimidated for years to make it. And then I finally did. Now, he loved it, but I was like, oh my, that was a lot of work. I think I tore just about half the shells in the box. That was the first time, and I did get a little better at it after that, but it was definitely not something you would make on a busy weeknight. But this, however, is. It was so simple to make, and I will be making it again. This French onion chicken hash brown casserole turned out to be a family favorite. In a very large bowl, make sure it's a big one now. You're going to add in 1.5 cups of French onion dip. This stuff is so good. And I got a little carried away here and added too much, so I had to take some back out of there. Next, you're going to add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup. And for the seasonings, I added 1 teaspoon each of paprika, garlic powder, and parsley. And also ½ teaspoon of pepper. I'm just giving that a quick stir before I add in the rest. And by the way, if you're enjoying this easy recipe, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And that was 3 cups of the cooked shredded chicken I added in there, along with 3 cups of shredded cheese. And for the hash browns, I'm using the shredded. The recipe called for a 30-ounce bag, but all I had was a 26-ounce bag, and it still turned out perfect. And I did let them sit out on the counter for about 15 minutes before I used them, just so they wasn't frozen solid. Also, it's easier to stir if you add half the bag, then mix it, then add in the rest. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to get it all well combined. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, if you're new here, I always have the recipe linked or typed out in my description box below the video. That way you don't have to try to write it down as I go. I got that all mixed up. I'm grabbing a 9x13 casserole dish and I'm pouring it all in. I started out trying to spoon it in and then I just ended up dumping it all. Either way, as long as you get it in there and kind of spread it out a little bit. Now you're going to sprinkle over a 6-ounce bag of the crispy French fried onions. And y'all just kind of have to use your own judgment here as far as how many of these things to add. I'm picking out a burnt one there. I felt like the whole bag would have been a lot, so I ended up only adding about 3/4 of that. And if you don't like French fried onions, you could always do Ritz crackers or potato chips or even cornflakes. Now I'm topping all that with a cup of shredded cheese. And I'm just using a combination of cheddar and mozzarella. Now this goes into the oven to bake at 350 for about 35 minutes. And y'all, this was so good. I kind of figured it would be good with the French onion dip because we just love that stuff, but it was really delicious. I love how easy it was to put together, and I just kept it simple and served it with green beans. Do you have a go-to side dish you make pretty regular? My family loves the green beans, steamed broccoli, or buttered corn. I really hope you enjoyed this video. You may also like these. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more easy recipes, and I will see you in the next one. Buddy, go sit down. Sit. I really hope you enjoyed this video. In today's video, and I'm blinking. That wasn't too bad, but I'm going to do it one more time. And I'm so ready for... I should just leave it. I give up.
You should just use what you got.
I'm going with what I got. That's me. Going. That's good. Okay. I'm gonna get... Now I got the giggle boxes.